Have you ever met someone who is perfectly, completely, and utterly logical all of the time? Someone who makes every single decision, from what to have for breakfast to which job to take, based on a cold, hard calculation of what will benefit them the most? Economists have a name for this kind of person or economic man. This isn't a real person, of course, but a theoretical model. It's a bit like a stick figure drawing of a human. It captures the basic shape but leaves out all the interesting, messy details. This model assumes we are all relentlessly self-interested, always striving to maximize our own personal gain with mathematical precision. It's a useful idea for explaining some big economic trends. Economists use this concept of the perfectly rational, self-serving individual to build theories about how markets work. They imagine a world full of these characters, all making choices to get the best possible deal for themselves. When you go shopping, you want the best product for the lowest price. When a company sells something, it wants the highest profit possible. According to this view, the push and pull between all these self-interested actors creates the forces of supply and demand. Adam Smith, a very famous economist, called this the invisible hand, suggesting that when everyone chases their own benefit, society as a whole somehow ends up better off. It's a neat and tidy way to think about our complex world. But here's the rub. What happens when acting purely in your own self-interest actually leads to a worse outcome for everyone, including you? This is where the model starts to wobble a bit. It assumes that the safe choice, the one that protects your own interests no matter what anyone else does, is always the best one. However, this focus on individual gain can blind us to the enormous benefits of working together. It ignores the power of trust, loyalty, and community, forces that are just as real as the desire for profit. The simple idea of a perfectly selfish person can't quite explain why we hold doors open for strangers, or why we feel good when we help a friend. This brings us to a fascinating puzzle that challenges the very foundation of purely rational self-interest. It shows that sometimes the most logical seeming path can lead everyone off a cliff, hand in hand. The quest for personal security, when followed by everyone, can create a world where no one is secure. This paradox isn't just a quirky thought experiment. It reveals a fundamental truth about human interaction. It demonstrates that our fates are often intertwined, and that playing it safe in the narrowest sense can be the most dangerous game of all. Understanding this is the first step toward building stronger businesses, communities, and even a better world. Now, let's dive into a classic story that perfectly illustrates this problem. It's called The Prisoner's Dilemma. Imagine two partners in crime, let's call them Bob and Alice, who have been caught by the police. The police don't have enough evidence to convict them of the main crime, so they separate them into different interrogation rooms. They can't talk to each other. The prosecutor then offers each of them the exact same deal, and they both know the terms. Their choice is simple. Either betray your partner by confessing or stay silent and cooperate with them. The outcome for each depends on what the other person decides to do. It's a real head-scratcher. Here's how the deal breaks down, with some easy numbers representing prison sentences. If both Bob and Alice stay silent, cooperate with each other, they both get a very light sentence, say just 1 year in jail each. However, if Alice confesses, betrays Bob, while Bob stays silent, Alice walks away completely free, and poor Bob gets slapped with a massive 10-year sentence. The same thing happens if Bob confesses and Alice stays silent. And finally, if they both decide to betray each other and confess, they both get a medium sentence, let's say 5 years each. Let's look at this from Alice's point of view. She doesn't know what Bob will do. She thinks, if Bob stays silent, my best move is to confess, because then I go free instead of getting 1 year. But what if Bob confesses? Well, then my best move is still to confess, because getting 5 years is much better than getting 10 years. Bob, in his separate room, is going through the exact same thought process. No matter what the other person does, the safest, most logical choice for the individual seems to be to confess. It protects you from the worst-case scenario and gives you a chance at the best one. And so, what happens? Both Bob and Alice, acting perfectly rationally and in their own self-interest, decide to confess. The result is that they both end up serving 5 years in prison. This is the Nash equilibrium, a stable outcome where neither person can do better by changing their mind alone. But look at what they missed. If they had both just trusted each other and stayed silent, they would have only served 1 year each. By each playing it safe and trying to protect themselves, they created a situation that was significantly worse for both of them. This is the hidden danger of playing it safe. Individual logic can lead to collective failure. This isn't just a clever story about fictional criminals. The prisoner's dilemma plays out all around us every single day. Think about two rival coffee shops on the same street. They would both make more money if they kept their prices high. But each owner might think, if I lower my prices just a little, I can steal all their customers and make a huge profit. If the other shop owner is thinking the same thing, they both slash their prices, kicking off a price war that leaves them both with far less profit than if they had just cooperated. They both played it safe by trying to grab a competitive edge, and both ended up worse off for it. We see this on a global scale too. Consider the issue of climate change. Every country would benefit from a stable global climate, which requires reducing carbon emissions. This is the cooperate option. However, reducing emissions can be expensive and might slow down a country's economic growth in the short term. So a country might think it's safer to continue polluting, the betray option, hoping that other nations will do the hard work of cutting back. But if every country follows this self-interested logic, nobody cuts their emissions enough, and the entire planet faces disastrous consequences. It's a massive, high-stakes version of the prisoner's dilemma. Luckily, real life has a feature that the basic dilemma doesn't. We often interact with the same people again and again. This is what game theorists call a repeated game. If the coffee shop owners have to face each other every day for years, they might learn that a price war only hurts them both. This repetition allows for trust and reputation to be built. You learn that cooperation pays off in the long run. People and companies can develop strategies like tit for tat, where you start by cooperating and then simply mirror your partner's last move. This simple rule encourages good behavior and punishes betrayal immediately, making cooperation a much more attractive long-term strategy. Because of this, societies have developed ways to escape the dilemma. We create rules, laws, and contracts to enforce cooperation. We have international treaties on trade and environmental protection to change the incentives, making it less risky to trust others. Social norms and a sense of fairness also play a huge role. We learn from a young age that it's good to share and that a good reputation is valuable. These formal and informal rules act as a safety net, helping us overcome our fear of being the sucker who cooperates while others betray and guiding us toward better collective outcomes. The final piece of the puzzle is perhaps the most important one. Real humans are not. We are not perfectly rational, calculating machines. Thank goodness. Our decisions are a wonderful and sometimes frustrating jumble of logic, emotion, instinct, and error. Behavioral economists have shown that we are influenced by all sorts of cognitive biases. We might be overly optimistic, we might fear losses more than we value gains, and we often make choices based on gut feelings rather than a detailed analysis. This means our behavior is often far less predictable than the simple economic model suggests. Furthermore, unlike the purely selfish figure in the model, people genuinely care about others. We are social creatures, and concepts like fairness, altruism, and loyalty are deeply ingrained in us. We might choose to cooperate in the prisoner's dilemma, not because of a cold calculation about future rewards, but simply because it feels like the right thing to do. We might leave a tip at a restaurant we'll never visit again, or donate to a charity for people we'll never meet. These actions make no sense from a purely self-interested perspective, but they are a fundamental part of what makes us human. This human complexity is not a flaw. It is a feature. It is our ability to trust, to feel empathy, and to think beyond our immediate self-interest that allows us to solve the very dilemmas that pure logic creates. While the prisoner's dilemma shows how individual rationality can lead to poor group outcomes, our irrational human tendencies often save us from this trap. We build relationships, form communities, and create societies based on the idea that we are stronger together. This is something that the stick figure model of simply cannot capture. Our capacity for cooperation is our greatest superpower. So understanding these ideas is incredibly useful. Recognizing when we are in a situation that looks like a prisoner's dilemma helps us see the trap before we fall into it. It highlights why clear communication, trust, and well-designed rules are so essential for tackling big collective problems, from office politics to global crises. It teaches us that the safe path of looking out only for number one can be the riskiest path of all. By embracing our complex, cooperative, and sometimes irrational human nature, we can find clever and compassionate solutions to challenges that seem impossible to solve alone.